just wanted to say, when the sun and the moon finally eclipse and the divine feminine and the divine masculine are brought back together, there'll be perpetual daytime. There won't be any night, because it's going to be the ever now. That's what immortality is. You don't need to look at a clock, because when you leave your door at the right moment. And if we're walking and if we're using our own power, if we're walking around our neighbourhoods, if we're walking to the town, we'll meet everybody we're supposed to meet on that journey. A little while ago, I left the house and I decided I really wanted to make a stained glass window for my front door. And I was going down to see a church anyway. And then I met this woman in the car park. And she said to me, "Oh, are you going in the chapel?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh, if I give you £5, could you put it in the donation box for me?" So I said, "Yeah, of course." And I didn't even really click, because it just looked like a bus in the car park. So I thought there might be a busload of people in there. So she went towards the bus and she opened up. Exactly the type of bus I want. I can't remember what it was, but it's the one where, you pull open the door and there's just the driver's seat at the front. And then it's quite big, but not massive. I suppose the sort of size of most of the minibuses that we sort of had, but it was an older fashioned one, so it was lovely. Anyway, and I said, "Oh, do you live in this?" And I said, and I showed her my van, and then she took me in hers. Oh my God, it was so gorgeous. It had me written all over it. It was just like someone had built exactly what I want, exactly where I wanted it. And then she had this really beautiful stained glass image. I can't remember what it was now, whether it was a bird, but it was beautiful, hanging in the window. And she'd even got the cooker in exactly how I had done it. So it was so funny. And as I say, so we got chatting and we talked about lots of things, had loads of stuff in common, really got on with her. I've got her number, and she lives in Brighton. Lula, she's lovely, amazing. And I then said, "Oh, what do you do?" And she said, "Oh, I make stained glass windows." And I said, "Oh, how funny, I left the house and that's what I want to do in my front door." And she said, "If you want to do that," and I mean, this is how universe works. She said, "Get the materials and what you want." She said, "And I'll help you make it." There you go. So you meet all the right people at exactly the right time, because it is the imminent now. And you need to take the clocks down. Get rid of your clock. Because actually, haven't you been realising for weeks and weeks, every time you look at the phone, it's exactly the right time. You're just in time to do whatever it was that was important anyway in your life. And those things that you've completely forgotten, that's just gone out of your brain, well, then they're not important. So you don't need to do them. Just follow your inner guidance the whole time. I had to say that. It's because I've had a lovely long magnesium bath and I'm really in my feminine. But yes, moon and sun eclipse. It's all about the eclipses. And I've done a breakdown of that, but I must do a video on eclipses and what I'm figuring. And interesting that the MasterCard has that, and it's the middle of it is the Vesica Pisces. And it's interesting, when there are eclipses in the world, not everybody sees them. And it's interesting, just recently I've met 2 people that attended the same eclipse I did in 1999 in exactly the same field. Now that's a little bit weird, isn't it? That's a little bit strange. That all 3 of us in 1999 were in that field and we didn't even know each other. And however long ago is that? That's 21 years later. Is that 21? 21 years later, we've actually met. Obscurely, through somebody else, or by, you know what I mean? Like, round the houses. Because maybe we were supposed to meet 21 years ago, and those little old serpents got in the way. Them little parasitey wormies got in the way. I think it is just like Adjustment Bureau. Go watch that film. Every time you're doing right in your life and you're on your path, something will come in really big to distract you. Is it going to be a boyfriend? Is it going to be whatever it is, and pull all your energies over here? Yeah, so just be warned on that. Because it can then keep, the next person was the person you were maybe meant to meet. Yeah? It's very deep. It's all very, very deep. And we haven't fathomed it. And where we've gone wrong is we were all telepathic. That's the secret. We were all telepathic. And then the problem is they then taught us to read and write. And think about it. Back in the day, masses of people couldn't read and write. They still had smarts. Boom, boom. They were still really intelligent, yeah? And they knew how to work. And then you see what I'm saying? So it wasn't intelligence that it brought, because you had that anyway. you know, we learnt language before we learnt spelling or writing or any of that, right? We learnt language, so we understood that. So if our mother said da 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 whatever, we know that. Yes, we don't have to have it written down to understand it in a different way. And then they messed around with the vowels. They've moved them around. Like fear should be spelled F-E-E-R because the opposite of fear is to be free. That's what it's all about, getting into your sovereignty. And so that's... bugger, I went off the point. Shit, sorry. As I said, eclipses, meeting people. Yes. So is that really how it happens? How do we not know that literally everybody in your road is already AI and have been AI ever since you moved here? I've lived here 25 years. Yeah. And maybe that's a buckle around my shoe, and because it's not letting me go because it doesn't want me to leave Tunbridge Wells because it doesn't want me to go somewhere where I'm going to meet somebody that's really important in my life. Could that be it? Yeah. Or if you dig in and you're at home and you make your home as beautiful as possible and all the rest of it and you're doing creativity, will they come to you? Are you the beaker the other way round? Do you have to journey to find? And then maybe if you have to journey by wheels, and this is what I'm talking about, you don't get walking sick and you don't get horse sick, because those are the two modes that God gave us. He gave us our legs to walk on and we can run on them. You can run lots of people can run a very long time, yeah? But just don't do it on tarmac. That's what damages your knees. You're meant to run on grass, on unleavened grass. So you get grounded, and because it's uneven, and here you are all paying for gyms, just go in the wood, climb pine trees, shimmy up trees, swing from branches, put swings up, put your weights up, put those, I forgot what they're called, you know, those yoga things that hang upside down. You don't need to pay 500 quid a fucking year to go to a bloody gym, for God's sake. God gave you a gym. That's what he gave us. And he gave us quite hard work, yes. But then again, don't you know that amazing feeling in the summer when it's a glorious day and you've been out in the garden, or you haven't gone out because you've had a glorious day, you've come back late, and I'm literally in the garden until I literally can't see. And sometimes my neighbour comes and goes, aren't you going to go in yet? I go, no. And I really get in it, and you work your guts out, and but it's not hard work. It's glorious work when it's hard. It's so lush. It really is lovely when you're so satisfied and you come home and you have a lovely bath, and that night you sleep so well because it wasn't hard work anymore, because you got into the rhythm, you got into the earth, yeah, probably because you were working on the earth. Same with art. I get, you know, if I'm listening to a video or listening to some lovely music and I do my art, oh my God, I can't stop. I used to stay up all night and do 20, 30 plants, and you know, I could just knock them out, bang, 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 bang. And it wasn't I was knocking them out because I wanted to make loads. I literally couldn't stop. I had to go through my pink phase, and I had to go through my purple phase, and I had to go through my blue phase. And then I even started dyeing the materials that I was using because I was realising I could have them any colour I wanted. I didn't have to be subjected to colours people wanted me to have. I could create new colours, different things. You know, thank you so much to Annie for that. Oh, and now her surname's completely... Annie, it'll come back to me. The amazing woman who taught me how to make soft pots. And she's put that in the world. It makes me sad because we've lost her. But I hope she's now become part of each of us that she touched with those soft pots. And we've got a quality of Annie in us. And maybe this is what happens when we die. Splinter back into mirrors. And all those people that were good to you, or all those people that you helped. Do you know what I mean? Those people that you had bond, maybe you're giving a piece of your mirror to them. So they shine a bit brightly. And then they take on that ether and that energy of that wonderful person, because they magnetised you, you know, this whole negative, positive thing. You know, this is really interesting. And, you know, these blood group things, and you're either negative or you're positive. And then a battery doesn't work unless it's got negative and positive. And so then should people with a negative blood group actually only be with people with a positive blood group, and that makes a spark of life? And is that the whole connection? You know, the triangle, 3-pin plug. What is it? Man, woman, child. The triangle. The triangle. You can't make a child without a man and a woman. A man and a woman can only make a child. Do you get it? It's a riddle. And they're trying to convince you men can have babies. For goodness sake. For goodness sake. And the saddest thing of this is, I don't believe... Right, this is my thought. I think we are children until we're 50 years old. And in astrology, Chiron is the wounded healer, and he comes into your life about 49 51, and actually the span is probably maybe a bit bigger than that. But the point is, about that time in your life, your most painful wound in your life will come and get you and stab you in the heel, and it's how you deal with it. Oh my God, I see, I'm even waking up to realising stuff. So I had quite horrible stuff happen to me a long time ago. I'm now realising that I was actually part of the problem. I did not help the situation. And this business with triggering, we've so got to remember, when we're an egg, when that spark of life of my mother happened between my grandfather and my grandmother, I was present. Because the second that baby was conceived, I was in her, because I'm going to come from her. Of course I'm in her. It works both ways. And this is the problem. Back in the day, I was probably arguing with my mum, but my mum was probably having an argument with her mother that she never had because her mother had died. Do you know what I mean? And my mum had a really, really, really strict upbringing. My mum was beaten nearly every day of her life. She was whipped by her stepmother. My mum had a horrible time, and her brother John really had a really shit time. And so my mum didn't want to be like that with me. So she went completely the opposite. No discipline, no lines, no drawing anything. And I've really suffered from that because I've always stepped over the mark. And anyone who knows me knows that. But isn't this interesting? And so I'm really middle ground. So I'm really taking from both those things. You can be strict, but you can be kind with it. You don't have to hit anybody. Hitting can be an absolute last resort. And put it this way, if I was calling my child and they were running to the road and they didn't hear me and I had to run and snatch them back out of danger, I would slap them and shock them that was really dangerous and don't ever do it again. And they're going to know my mum's really serious now. She's got my attention and she's told me a rule and I'm going to listen to her because I respect her. And this is again where we've gone wrong. Nobody respects anybody, for goodness sake. When I was at school, we used to get caned, and there was a lad, what's his name? Graham Morris. Oh my God, that poor guy. He got beaten. Oh, he was in the headmaster. And he was just, now they diagnosed ADHD. No, he was special. He was special. School was not suited to him. And again, it's always the people that come off worse in school because that environment does not suit them. I know it does some people, but then they're probably highly programmed, and they're so programmed that it doesn't really matter. But they're trying to put round pegs in square holes and vice versa. They don't want you to discover what your talent is. They don't want you to discover what you're actually really good at. It's got to have a title or a profession, and you've got to get a degree to do it. No, we all have, we're all adepts. Adepts, we are probably adepts. But we're all adept at doing something. And the school system doesn't allow you to find what that something is. Like you might do woodwork one term. And then if they see you're really good, or if you question the teacher, like the first time I ever went, I was so excited. I so wanted to do woodwork. My grandfather was a carpenter and many other things, but he made lots of furniture and he did it the old-fashioned way where he made wooden nails and made wedges and, I've forgotten what you call it, but when you splice it in, when you make those joins like a puzzle. Absolutely amazing. And that's what I like. I want to turn a palette into something else. I don't want somebody else who's created that bit of furniture. I want to create my own bit of furniture. Get some personality, everyone. Get some flipping individuality. If you start making things, you won't be able to stop. And then you're going to have so many things, you're going to think, oh, what the hell am I going to do with this? So then what you do, you start giving them to all your friends as presents. And then they say, oh, this is really nice. And then when it's one of their friends' birthdays, they say, oh, can I have one of those? And then you get a little market stall and then you start selling your stuff. And we need to be jacks of all trade. We need to be a candlestick maker, a baker. What is it? Can't think. A baker, a banker, a robber. All of those things we need to be. Maybe not the robber, but all of those things. Because if you're a jack of all trade, I don't want to be a master of anything. That's the point. Why can't I excel at cooking and also be a kind person and a healer and give healing to people? And also, why can't I be a babysitter? And why can't I be a nanny to somebody that needs one? You know, stop all these bloody dating sites. What we need is, I want to see adopt a granny, or adopt a grandchild, or adopt a family. How many families out there have lost their loved ones, yeah, and need a granny in the house and a granddad? You know, this was wonderful. Years ago, we all lived next door to each other. Didn't have to worry about your neighbours because you were your neighbours. You knew everybody. You worked in the field with them. To know people, you need to see them in a crisis. You need to see them in a physical accident. You need to see how they respond to certain, stimulus. How are they with animals? How are they with children? How are they with old people? How are they with women? Do they open the door? Are they courteous? Are they polite? You know, all of these things are really important. You know, where have all our flipping morals and manners gone? You know, when you go around someone's house, you knock on the door, right? You wipe your feet when you enter. You don't enter until you're invited in. You're polite. You know, if it's obvious that that's their chair, you obviously don't sit in their chair. Do you see what I mean? It's just manners. You know, my mum always taught me, if a man leaves the loo seat up after he's had a pee, it ain't worth, forget it, right? And sadly, I've always judged a man like that. And then it was really funny because we found this amazing old, it was beautiful. It must have been out of a church or some grand house. But anyway, it was this beautifully shaped toilet seat. Sorry, my mother would kill me, lavatory or loo seat. So it was this beautiful lavatory seat, and I can't even remember what wood, but it was really nice, and it had this rounded bit, and then it came out. It was quite decorative. Plain, but the shape of it was very decorative. And it didn't have a lid, right? So actually, maybe it was probably actually off a posh compost loo, now I think about it. So anyway, we attached hinges and then another piece of wood at the back, and then put 2 holes in that, and then attached it to loo. So it had no seat. If you see what I mean, you know, the lid. Because really, everybody should put their lids down after you finish. Because in Feng Shui, that means, depending whether your bathroom is or your loo is in an auspicious place in your house. And again, we don't take any really intelligent information. They just bung up a load of houses, whichever way. Well, it's all sensible, isn't it, to have all the gardens facing east, south, and west, so that you get the sunlight all day in your gardens. And if they really cared, they could, even though it looked very uniform. But then again, no, you could do circles. But if they're all facing the correct way, you know, back in the day, they used to make big bedrooms big enough that you could literally have your bed on any wall. You could have it on the wall, even with where the door was, because the cupboard would be in a good place, or it could be under the window or on that wall. So you could choose which way your head pointed. Now the houses got smaller and smaller and smaller, and 9 times out of 10 there isn't a cupboard. So you're really restricted even which way your headboard on your bed can be. You check it out. I bet there's so many of you now that are in rooms where that's the only way the bed can go. And then maybe look up which way is a good way to sleep with your head. And do quite a bit of research, because there's conflicting answers out there. And this is the point. Everything you've searched now, it's a level, right? And what are we on now? We're on the sea, aren't we? We're all bouncing around in this flood because we're the ark, and we're trying to come to a balance, lance the ball, lance the boil, and that's what's happening. Everything is coming to the surface now. People can't lie. People are telling the truth. And if they're not, then they're realising the person they're talking to is seeing right through them. And that's where we're at now. And so it's really interesting. And we've got to stop protesting about everything. Genuinely complain about things that are not right with the system. You know, that the bus doesn't come around 6 times a day, or why doesn't it go down to that bit of road because that's where all the old houses are and you're missing all the old ladies and that's the only transport that they have, or do you just want them to stay indoors? And old people go shopping because that's their only means of communication, because most of them are on their own. So they go shopping 3-4 times a week. Plus they still live in that era of fresh food, which we've forgotten, because we can buy it 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. Insane. Bring back Sunday closing. That's what I want to see. You don't have to be religious. Everybody should have the same day off every week so all the family can be together. Do you not get it? That's why they have Sunday opening times, because they don't want you to be together. They want the house divided. They don't want you to have a lovely day where you can all go off and walk in the park or go swimming or go down to the beach and paddle or go and take the dog for a lovely long walk in the wood and go and find... That's what we used to do on a Sunday. We used to have great Sundays when I was little. Used to put the dinner on about 11 o'clock, put it on low, you roast dinner, and the easiest meal in the world because everything cooks at the same time. If you're sensible and you just put your veg on at the last minute. So easy. And then sometimes we'd go down to the pub and the grown-ups would have a beer, and then we'd go for a walk in the woods and we'd find puffballs and we'd find this and we'd find that, and they'd show us what was poisonous and what wasn't, and we'd look at the bluebells and we'd kick the leaves. Fabulous time. And then you'd go home and what would you do? You'd all sit down at a table. There wouldn't be no telly on. There wouldn't be none of that shit. And quite often, I don't even think you probably even would have music. No, what did you do? You all sat down, and not only that, you then said grace. You thanked, whether you want to thank God, Jesus, universe, whatever you want to call this supreme being, this grand creator, architect, whatever you want to call him, her, it, whatever. The only reason you're eating that, because of him. You know what I mean? Because again, my idea of God is still a white bearded man sitting on a cloud, because that's what they wanted me to think. And that he'll throw thunderbolts at me if I'm bad. And then you become fearful of something outside of yourself, and then they just expand on that. You watch Bambi and now you think your mother's going to die. So you withdraw your love because you're so terrified that your mother's going to die, and you haven't got over the trauma of seeing that. And then to make it up, we then all take our kids, because we feel guilty, to Disneyland, where the ride's a thing called like Brain Twister, and they're put in machines that go too fast, and then they're doubly hypnotised. And then we stick them in front of the telly because it's easier. The telly is not the nanny. What was that film? The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. What was that film? Was it called that? The Hand That Rocks the Cradle is the hand that rocks the world. And do you remember in that film? I think it was called that. A horrible girl. Used to be in Risky Business with Tom Cruise. It was horrible. She became a nanny and she started breastfeeding the family's baby and then trying to come on to the husband, and then she kills everyone that's in her way. She's completely psycho. But watch that film, because that's basically, all of these procedures that you have done in hospital are abusive. You women that are going to have a smear, that's abusive. A woman's standing there shoving what is like a shoehorn, a really sharp, hard... I'm telling you now, if somebody lovely had invented that, it would be soft and it would be convenient. But they deliberately make it out of metal or something completely alien, and then you feel like you've been raped. Because this isn't enjoyable. I remember it was quite a few years ago. Sorry, I know this is but who cares at this point? So at one stage, I went and had a smear because I'd been diagnosed with cancer when I was 17, and that I should have everything removed. I didn't. I still have everything intact, and I'm 59. So this is interesting, and I healed myself from belief. And even when I used to look in my mother's eyes, I could see how scared my mum was. Rubes, open the door then, sweet. Let yourself out. Lost my thread. I could even see the pain in my mother's eyes of the expectancy that I was going to die, because she let the fear get in. And I luckily went and saw somebody, and I didn't have the fear anymore, and I went homeopathic, and it was amazing. But I'm now realising more and more, even that's giving our power over to somebody else. When you really get in tune with your inner being, what is that amazing saying? Physician, heal thyself. That's what it's all about. Physician, heal thyself. And so you start moving towards the things that are beneficial to you. I know what's really beneficial to me. I drove all around Yorkshire back whenever it was, visiting various people and places and having an amazing time in my van with the cat and the dog and having a wonderful time. And I really wanted to find some essences, and I went to the Yorkshire Essence Company, and I've forgotten the little place, Ilkley, that's where it's at. Met this lovely lady, chose the right things and the names of them. And I've heard of Bach flower remedies. I've heard of, the Australian flower remedy essence. There's lots of different essences, but I'd never heard of these. And they are originated from Bailey. I can't think of his name. Somebody Bailey. And then this lady's now taken over from that, but they still sell them. I think there's 101. And again, if you're in tune with yourself and trust yourself, you can do kinesiology, or you've got a pendulum. You can use your own body. Just hold something against you and ask, is this good for, is this for my highest good at this time? And you go forward if it's a yes, and you go back and just start trusting it, because that gut that we sort of have half trusted all our lives. When you say, "Oh, I had a gut instinct, but I didn't listen to it." The same as paranoia. There's no such thing as, but they want to make you think that paranoia, you've made it up in your head and there's something fearful and it's you've brought it on yourself. No. Every time I've ever been paranoid, it saved my life. I went to a party up in London years ago. I was probably just mid-teens, probably, with a family friend. And we went to this party and I got there and I felt really sick. And I thought, I don't want to be here, don't want to be here, don't want to be here. And I didn't know why. I didn't want to have a drink. And normally, I'd have a fun time. Do you know what I mean? I would have danced and done whatever. And I just did not want to be there. And I said, I'm going. And I left. And I can't remember if she came and someone else came with me. But anyway, I definitely left. I can't remember who else came or if anybody did. And literally 10 minutes later, somebody at that party stabbed somebody. When I was a barmaid years ago, I don't even know where it came from. One night, I started saying to everyone in the pub, we're going to get raided. I just knew we were going to get raided. And I just said, beware, we're going to get raided. And I just went round and whispered to our locals and whatever. And bugger me, 10 minutes later, the door flew open and we got raided. Because I felt it coming. The night of the storm, when I was up the Flute and Flypaper, I was shut up. Terry was away and I was looking after the pub. And I leant out, he left the middle window open upstairs above the bar. And I shut the window. And as I went to shut the window, it was deathly quiet outside, 1987. Deathly quiet. I'd never... And don't forget, Flute and Flypaper was on St John's up by the yard. It's now Junninged or something. It's an Indian restaurant now. Brilliant venue. Fantastic beers, lots of really local beers. That's what it done so well. And we had loads of live music. And it was the tiniest venue you could get in. The cellar bar was minute and it was packed all the time. I think we had bands Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It was brilliant. Anyway, so it was deathly quiet. So then I came down and I was looking I can't even remember where he was. They weren't on their honeymoon. I can't remember anyway. So I shut the door and I stood just on the step of the Flute and Flypaper, and I was living in Culverden Down. So I literally had like 30 yards to walk, and I just stood there and I felt it again. I didn't hear one electrical anything. I couldn't hear the telegraph, because if you late at night you can hear these things, hear the buzz from the telegraph pole or whatever. You can hear the train in the distance. You can hear a bell, cars, that hum. No, absolutely nothing. And it must have been, I can't remember what time it hit Tunbridge Wells, but it must have been about between 2 and 3:30, something like that. So that's when the world is much quieter, but this was just silent. And then I just saw, and I can't remember if it was a toffee paper or a marathon, but it was one of those wrappers. I think it was a toffee, the orange one with the brown bubbles on it. And it started rolling down the street like it was in a little tornado. And it was really weird because it was the only thing. And it was just doing this, coming down the street. And then it suddenly picked up and it started coming faster. And then I felt the dust raise off the floor and start coming at me. And it came at my ankles. And then every second I stood there and I was just like, at it. The sand, the dust from the road was lifting up a bit, and then it was like on my body, and then it lifted up again, and then it was in my face, and then I literally could hardly stand up. By then, the wind was so strong, and I just managed to pass that little bit where they used to have the boarding signs up, where there's a gap. How I got across there, I don't know. That was really hard. I think I ducked behind the wall and then ran so I was out the wind. And then I literally held on to that corner bit of the street opposite the yard where Victoria Stone was. I held on for grim life. It was like climbing but sideways, being blown. I don't even know how fast that wind was freaking going, but it went down that bloody road straight to Tunbridge fast. And you know how many trees it knocked down. It knocked down 6 oaks at Sevenoak. So it's 1 oak. I remember months later I went up to the top of Crowborough on the motorbike and to look down on it, and it was just like a circle. Everything was flat. It was more like something had blown them, and they'd all spun around and they'd all laid on top of each other like they do with teepees, how they put teepees up but the other way. It was phenomenal. So and again, was that even a storm? Was that a fucking alien landing for all I know? I don't know. But what I'm saying, it's extraordinary. And then I managed to get around the corner because the houses were blocking me. I didn't get the thing. And I got in my flat and I got into bed and I was knackered. I don't even know how I did it. I heard a lot of crashing about and banging. I was thinking, wow. And then I must have been so tired. I fell asleep. Got up for work in the morning. There was a delivery driver for Calm paint manufacturers. So I used to deliver paint and thinners and sprays and all of that. And I was a colourist, right? So anyway, I got up early to go and I opened the door. And by then, I don't know if I'd even forgotten, was it all half a dream? I don't even know how, it was sort of not even in my mind. I opened my front door. There were tiles, there were trees, there were bits of people's tyres, there were bits of people's dustbin. Everything was everywhere. It was just like the biggest calamity. And at the time, I thought, my God, how many people have died? Because then, it was extraordinary. I can't even remember. It was something like 18 people in the whole of the country. How fantastic was that? That it was just so, it could have been hundreds of thousands of people. Did you know that 2.5 million trees came down in London in 87? And if you actually look at the parts of London where they fell down, it's the ancient parks, and they were ancient trees. And then it was interesting. I got up that morning, went to work. I think 2 of the other girls didn't come in, and I had the country run. The other girl had the Biggin Hill, so she had Biggin Hill, Westerham, outskirts London, and I had Groombridge, Erridge, Goudhurst, wherever, all around like the countryside, right? So anyway, we both loaded up, and she went off and did one. I can't remember what was her name. She used to have a blue soft top Chevrolet. Lisa. That's it, Lisa. God, that was a long time ago. So anyway, 87 is a long time ago. So Lisa went on and did that, and I went off and did the country run, and I must have had about 15, 20 deliveries. And it was really funny. Twice I bumped into Knuckles, literally with a chainsaw, cutting the trees in front of me to let me through, because he'd got there first. I'm telling you now, all the woodsmen around Kent and everywhere made a frigging fortune. I don't think you've ever had happier woodmen in your life. They stocked well up and they got paid to take these trees out of the way and move them because the cars couldn't get past. But anyway, this day I